recording?
Recording in progress.
Okay. We have Summer Matson, excused absent. Position number 2, Chip Bradley.
Position number 3, Sergio Martinez.
Position 4, Phoebe Skinner.
Position 5, Anthony Beer.
Mayor Tammy Hoffman?
We also have present Chief White, Mr. Fernandez's official title, Administrator Pagano, and Citizen Advisor for Jordan. We did say Jordan's online.
Yes.
Yeah. No. So last month,
See anything, so I don't know.
last month we called this the urban renewal to kind of go over with our new members, kind of give an idea of what the urban renewal agency is responsible for when we're wearing this hat. Our first item and only item of business today is to kind of get an update on the URA projects that we've been funded, just to kind of get our new members up to speed. We received one letter, right, Anthony, or Mr. Pagano?
We got a letter from the Whites, and then we've got a, I just kind of took a portion of the accomplishments out of the Gold Beach Main Streets, their packet.
Because I'm still technically in green around the ears too.
So you got the letter from the Whites, and then you've got a packet from Main Street, correct?
Yes. We have board members from Main Street here. Would you like to meet your new members of the agency and kind of give us a quick update, kind of get them up to speed on what you do?
Oh, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Nicholas Mazzaros. I'll be temporarily representing Gold Beach Main Street in lieu of the community coordinator. I brought with me some packets. So just for some quick background about myself, I grew up here in Gold Beach. After serving in the U.S. Air Force for 6 years, I completed my professional degree in architecture and moved back to town. I've recently got involved with Gold Beach Main Street in hopes that my skills in architecture and interest in urban design and historical preservation could be applied to improve my hometown. The packet I've provided today contains some examples of concept illustrations I've produced in collaboration with Gold Beach Main Street as ideas for local businesses and facade improvements. By providing renderings and other architectural services, I'm hoping to lend my abilities to help Gold Beach Main Street's historic preservation efforts and inspire positive improvements in the community. So for updates concerning the Gold Beach Main Street program, our Christmas Give Back program was a great success. We generated almost $10,000 in local donations to purchase local business gift certificates and that were distributed to families for Christmas. Unfortunately, we missed Oregon Main Street's Revitalization Multi-Facade Project Grant, but we are very excited about meeting this deadline next year. Gold Beach Main Street will be finishing up 2 mini parks, McKay's and a bench site at the north end of town by Sunset Station. Looking into the future, we're working on securing 2 operational grants at this time. Wild Rivers Coast Alliance and Oregon Community Foundation. Because we have a new officer at the port, we're very excited about these 2 unique grants. We will be having a site visit with Consor to tour our Main Street and discuss proposals and direction. Consor has been a great partner. We will be meeting April 14th at the library to discuss...
17.
Oh, 17th. Thank you. As the council, mayor, and city knows, change and transition does happen. As a board, we are very proud of how each member has really stepped up and taken on greater leadership. just recently. We are actively looking for a strong candidate for the community coordinator position. If you have any recommendations or any questions, please email Gold Beach Main Street Group at your next convenience. Thank you.
Any questions?
Why are you temporary?
Oh. Well, I'm temporary because we're looking for a community coordinator. We're hiring actively, so as soon as that position's filled, I'm just acting as in lieu.
You said you created this packet, you made these drawings.
Yes,
Thank you for sharing these with us.
you're welcome.
And thank you for joining the board
Oh, thank you.
and for coming back to Gold Beach.
Okay.
Consor is what used to be Murray Smith, right?
Yes, previously Murray Smith.
Thank you.
It's the second time a consultant has changed their name midway. Happened to us last year.
Okay.
Mr. Buren, any questions?
No, they can't.
One more quick question. I understand that there may not be more information, but how far along are we with the feasibility study?
Oh, feasibility study. I don't have notes on the feasibility study with me at this time,
Cool.
but I can update you.
That's what the meeting on the 14th for.
Thank you.
Is everybody invited to that?
Yes, 17.
Okay.
And what time is that?
Yes, we're going to send you out an all email.
Oh, good. All right.
Is there a time already set?
No, Consort hasn't given us a time, but we think it's going to be around 10 or 11.
Morning.
Yeah, and we're going to do a catered lunch in the library in the conference room. And that will allow Consort to be able to spread out all their maps and give us a visual of where they are at this point.
They actually have said, though, earlier, before all this got started, that they're looking at maybe having it done by August. So that was the prediction, but you know how things always slow down.
Of course.
Yes. So that's pretty fast, so we're happy with that.
Yeah.
Any quick questions?
I do. We want to look at moving our bench.
Okay.
Do I need to reach out with you and see about moving where we have it?
Yeah, just email us.
Okay.
And then I had a question following up. So this Friday night, the fundraiser for the tourism marketing screens, what are the details on that?
I believe we'll be having a meeting about that on Wednesday, so we'll have updates after that.
Okay, so on your Facebook page is the place to go to get info?
Facebook, yes, and if you have specific questions, just email us.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Phoebe, what were your questions? Because I just spoke with Martha today.
When, where, cost, are there places available still, or?
I don't.
I just
think
remember
it's-
that it was shared about.
We will reach out to Martha, but as I understand, it's full.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sold out.
That's good news.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm looking for advice.
So we got an update. Do you want to ask the Whites of anything, or you just have a written update good?
I'll ask my fellow council members, would you like to ask the Whites about their projects, or are you satisfied with what you've gotten in the letter?
I mean, I'm mostly satisfied. It looks like there's potential development to the south of your cottages. Are you involved in any way with that?
There is a piece that there's an 8-unit subdivision that's in process right now. And then there's also some additional discussion with a developer to try to push a PUD forward on more of our undeveloped property.
Is that the section by the road?
Yeah.
Oh, that's currently just, is wooded at the moment, or is that?
Mostly been cleared mainly, but
Okay.
yeah, there's,
It's probably pretty steep on that wooded
It is.
section.
I did the easy low-hanging fruit to begin with by building on the flat ground.
Yeah. I drove by there today and I just noticed, yeah, there's life down there.
There is, we're doing stuff.
I would like to recognize the effort you're doing to keep the city streets clean as you do construction. He was out cleaning dirt off the road that the machine, what do you call the machine? I don't know. That the excavator machine, something, brought on it.
It happens. yeah.
Above and beyond.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, I have a question for the agency. As you know, the city just recently obtained a parcel and then has a parcel next to it that has a lien, and, or a cloud, I'll call it. And then the building's being demolished. Does the Urban Renewal Agency want to take that on as a project now from the city and try to figure out what to do with that? Has anybody given that any thought? Because if it were an Urban Renewal Agency project, you could probably partner with 5 or 6 different entities to fund, to put them together.
Yeah, I was thinking that was the fit to go with. I was also thinking of marketing already with my try sign that says a lot of possibilities, just to make people excited as we go on. Come on, that's good.
It's a dad joke, I love it.
Good, right?
Oh, I just got it, thank you.
I don't know about the colors, maybe to fit into the Main Street color system. We'll bring them in on the design of that sign.
I'd be happy to hear any input they have.
Maybe Mr. Becker, I could have the kids help build it in class, little community buy-ins.
It'd be wonderful to see people invested in that, local people invested in what may come of that lot. I believe we're speaking about the lot on the north end of town.
What the reporter was, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be empty by tomorrow, right?
Pretty close.
So the lot that the building is on, for the most part, could be usable. The other one's going to have to probably stay parking and retained by the city or the agency.
I'd like to see us talk to, as a city, with our citizens on what they'd like to see there, if there's any scope that maybe we're not even thinking about that they want to. When we were discussing it, I was, and always will be, concerned about the city having any form of ownership of lands, especially with, like the new house bills and stuff. It just creates more headache than anything else. But I was super happy to see that on Facebook, on FaceSpace there, that it seemed like a large portion of our citizenship understood that while sad to see something of a historical level go, that it kind of opened the door for what it could become. And I mean, we even had citizens sitting there speaking about ideas to become proactive on situations like that, so that the scenario that has occurred would not be the inevitable route that occurs for future buildings. And I'm sure, I didn't read through all of the comments on there, but I'm sure there's probably a plethora. I can think of a few that folks probably drive through town and point at and go, oh, that one's going to have to be next, or throwing out ideas and stuff like that. So the scenario that we had there kept it partially behind closed doors, but going forward, I think as much community involvement is going to be something great for us, just because people they're really becoming invested in it, but they're actually looking at it in a way that is so logical that I think it says something great about our citizens, that they can measure that. Usually you see that from representatives because they're in a disembodied situation like we are, but the thought process going through our citizens was phenomenal. So I would think that including them to try and pick our direction, even if the final decision did come to the city, it would be good to include them.
That being said, how many seats do we have open on the Urban Renewal Agency for citizens right now? It was one we had open seats on, I think.
3.
3?
I think 3.
So
3
this is
open,
a good
but-
time to recruit.
We have 3 open, but 1 doesn't attend, so you might have 4 open.
And it is also getting close to budget time, so if we want to allocate funds towards that, that might be a good time to talk about it. We can always do a budget. Something we'll have to do if we need to.
And how many
Which is-
seats do we have open on the budget committee?
I think we're down
Are we full? Because we had the two.
one. I think we're appointing one. I think
Maybe
we're-
so one or two, depending on tonight's vote.
Planning commission is a really tough one to fill. But that's the city council. This is the urban renewal agency.
Well, but the budget committee, wait, so
We
our
share.
budget's separate, or we
The
share the
budget
same
committee
committee?
shares with the city budget committee.
That's what I thought.
Two separate budgets though, URA.
Two separate budgets, same committee, looking at the two. And the urban renewal agency itself has 3 or 4 open seats.
I'm speaking a little out of turn here, but there is a brainstorm thought that Oregon Main Street could be an advocate for us in terms of giving us examples of how other cities have dealt with this and how they presented it to the community, the options they've gotten, and the decisions they've made. And it would be nice if we could help the Urban Renewal Committee by gathering some of that data for you to make options from.
Thank you.
Yes.
I believe this is quite similar to what happened at the abandoned cheese factory. The city ended up with the property, tore the building down, and then eventually through the urban renewal, got Face Rock Creamery to open. And the beauty of it is I think Face Rock owns the building, the city owns the land, and Face Rock's required to keep the bathroom open for the public, which was kind of a win-win-win.
Wow.
Well, I'd have to double check if the city still owns the land. And there were several funders that got involved in making that happen. It's not big enough for a creamery, but my vision's always been some sort of business downstairs with some apartments upstairs. That's the way 101 used to be built. There was always businesses and apartments. As they got torn down, nobody wanted to build apartments. And that used to be the thing. It'd have a nice view, probably wouldn't be cheap, but it would be housing.
Made it small enough, they'd be cheap. Cheaper.
So it just depends on who would want to own it. I don't think the city wants to own it.
No.
However, I think we have to own the parking lot, which we're pretty good at owning parking lots.
How much will that parking lot accommodate, do we know? Like in terms of cars or parking?
Just depends on the layout.
Yeah.
Probably 10-ish, I think.
I think more than that.
We'd have to measure it. Depends on the entrances too.
Yeah, on the curb cuts, it has innately to it. I don't know where the property line lies exactly. They kind of came together, but they're technically separate pieces.
At least 10.
Is there any funding somewhere here for incentive for a business to come in and build something that is a possibility?
That's always possible, and Main Street's one of the best partners for that. If you know anybody on Main Street. Sorry, I spoke out there.
No, you're fine.
It's definitely a tricky subject when you get down to that because the easy ones to chase are usually name brand things, but our community historically has frowned on seeing something of that nature come in. Whether opinions have changed for that, I don't know, but we're in a situation where it's a prime piece of real estate. It's hopefully going to equate to being relatively cheap of a section. If there's anybody out there that's going to be looking at making a startup, I scrambled around to buy a ream of paper the other day. So I know people have been talking about paper products, and the corner drug has been having a little bit of supply issue. And I don't know the whole story behind that, but I do know that there's been things that you just, as you peruse, you see that there's needs that people want, and maybe a general store to that nature is something that our city would be able to house and choose to house. Again, it's community-wise, they've not been super keen on that subject, so, but times change, so.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
how about I throw an idea out that if the agency's open to the idea to maybe at the next city council agenda in May, to see if the city's open to that, which if you're open to it, they're probably open to it. And then maybe we could throw it out to the community. Here's our urban renewal plan. It's going to be an urban renewal project. Put in your applications what you want to do there. And the people that hit the majority of what is in the plan would be the top people you talk to.
Say that last part again.
So we've got a plan for our urban renewal. And so anybody that wanted to do something there,
For our goals.
if it was going to be an urban renewal plan, would have to be in the urban renewal plan. So if somebody can hit 3 of the urban renewal ideas and one can only hit 1 and one has nothing on the urban renewal plan, then it would make it easier for you to decide what you want to do with it, if that makes sense.
I would like to see that paired with the invitation to apply to join the Urban Renewal Agency Citizen Advisory thing. Like to have the
But
city.
we wouldn't want an
vote.
applicant to be on the board.
No,
You want an applicant to be,
yes, for those who aren't, for those who aren't applying, but looking to have a voice in the decision, and collect the voices of others to represent.
I like it. Looking at you guys for thoughts, if you have.
Absolutely, at this stage, let's get as much input as we can, let's hear what people have to say about it.
I really like the idea of sharing and promoting what the Urban Renewal Agency goals are and how I don't know if we could also promote how we rank them as an agency, but having that guide the conversation since that's how the money will be allocated, I think that will allow people to make informed presentations.
So, we discuss it with May, we could work on something that we could develop that we can share on, especially on community forums, since a lot of people, on Facebook, since a lot of people, that's how we've been getting our feedback on it.
But with something where they submit it officially.
Yeah,
So
but
maybe-
get our information out to the.
Yeah, just to broadcast it,
Mm-hmm,
maybe comments off broadcast.
mm-hmm.
I think the alternative, if the city decided not to do that, would be to sell it. And if the city sells it, it's got a high propensity to be purchased by somebody that's going to land bank it and wait for the value to go up. And we have a lot of land banking going on now. And I think the city's goal is to get something built that derives property tax, creates revenue, creates economic development.
I would like to keep it as an urban renewal project in it. Correct me if I'm wrong, feels like my phone numbers so that agency are on the same path.
I think you'd be correct.
Cool, okay. So, with no further business, we will adjourn the urban renewal meeting at 6:26 p.m. And I will turn it over to Mayor for.
I'd like to ask the Main Street group to stay for a little bit because we've got some really cool presentations.
Can we recess for a couple minutes?
That's a standing item. That's what you used to say. We got something.
Yeah.
The actual agenda And like I'm not at all.
I didn't send you my happy birthday back. Happy birthday.
Well,
Started.
Right back.
Ready? Okay, we're going to open the Gold Beach City Council meeting. It's almost 6:30, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Chip Bradley, position 2.
Sergio Martinez, position 3.
B.B. Skinner, position 4.
Anthony Deere, position 5.
Jordan White, Chief of Police.
Anthony Pagano, City Administrator.
And I'll make a note that Summer Madison, Counselor Madison is unavailable this evening for an excused absence. And tonight I'm really excited to speak about, I have to change glasses a lot, sorry, our If I Were a Mayor contest, and we got a lot of applications from the 5th grade. I think the majority of them came from Mrs. Nye's class, and I'm going to announce the top 3 tonight from that, and they're up here. And in 3rd place, we had, sorry, I got to switch pages, Connor Bolster. Connor would like to see more in disc golf.
Yeah.
Is that right? And I gotta change my glasses again. You have a blind mayor, sorry. The good news is they have glasses that fix this. And we'd like to see less trash, and especially in and around the park. And he's got a nice picture. Connor is a he, right?
Yes. Here, Connor, why don't you come stand at the podium while she shares?
As long as that's not too embarrassing. And better swings, a garden, more fruit trees, and a sparkling water fountain.
Ooh.
And a nice little drawing there, and I thank you, Connor, for your submission. And we will have checks available. I'm not sure how to do that. We have your address. How about we mail it to you? Does that work? Okay.
For a prize.
Thank you. Thank you for entering. Congratulations. We have, I think it's Kieran Griffith. Is Kieran here today? Kieran is over here in front of Mr. Bradley, I believe. It's cute little Daisy. And that submission is, if I were mayor, I would plant sunflowers on the sidewalks, and it would be safer and prettier and wouldn't cost much. And I thought Main Street really needed to hear that. And they've got a picture of Ray's Food Place with flowers on the front of it, which I thought was really cute. So thank you. And our first place winner was William Southern. Is William able to come today? Are they online by any chance? No. Okay. So William hit almost every area of what mayors actually do, a little extra. We'll call that creative. And idea 1 was to fix up old buildings, and he's got a picture of the Candle Building that's literally being torn down. Safer communities, and for that one, got a picture of the police and more police in the neighborhoods. So, and then more buildings on the coast, and there's a nice picture of the coast with some nice little buildings on it. And then the 4th idea was less coffee shops. And honestly, a lot of people, a lot of our students said we need more fast food, less coffee shops. And I found that kind of cute. And I don't control that part. And then, so those were the 3 winners there. And then I got 3 entries for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place.
You know what? We can clap for them even if they're not here.
I have to admit that Counselor Skinner was like the driving force to make sure that this happened. And I really do appreciate her help in doing that. She kept me
Well, I
motivated.
appreciate your competitive spirit and not letting those cities on the Columbia River take all the prizes. Let's go Gold Beach.
St. Helens wins every year. We're going to beat them this year. So we got 3 essays from the 8th graders. And can I talk one of you into reading this one?
I'll do it.
Thank you, sir. This is 3rd place from Serenity Davis. Is she here today?
All right, Serenity Davis. Living in Gold Beach, Oregon has its positives and negatives. I have only lived in Gold Beach for a year, but I instantly fell in love with the community and the small town. Moving here has definitely had a huge positive impact on my family and I, but something recently stuck out to me. I may only recognize how the teachers and staff members don't get paid nearly enough, or don't have certain supplies to educate their students. I'm only in middle school. However, I feel I can make an impact with just saying a few things. First, teachers work extremely hard to educate other people's children, but the kids don't respect the teachers. I notice how hard my teachers work every day to give us a decent education to help us in our later lives. Nowadays, kids don't really care about their education and depend on others to help them, or just don't care at all and search it up on the internet. Today's day and age, kids are being influenced. I mean this because middle schoolers become super inappropriate and disrespectful to teachers if they ask them to sit in their seat and do their work. Do I agree with absolutely everything that my teachers have to say? No, I do not. However, I can tell you that I deeply respect their work and what they do for our school campus. Teachers deserve respect from their students, and I feel deeply that they deal with a lot of things that may affect their career. In conclusion, making them want to quit teaching. Second, teachers need to have certain supplies for their classes. With the budget that they get in a week, it's not quite enough to buy the things to continue teaching a class. For example, let's say my teacher gets paid $10 an hour. They also have a house to pay mortgage for, groceries, gas, water, their car, etc., which makes it difficult to buy new supplies for us. They also work over at the high school and have to pay for supplies over at their campus as well. If you didn't know, certain supplies can be pretty expensive too, which doesn't give a lot of cash left over for new supplies. Since they have 7th and 8th grade classes, you go through a lot of things that the class might need. If supplies were cheaper, they would probably be able to do some of the more modern things with us. This is why I think supplies should be bought for schools. Third, the teachers try their best. Now, I especially noticed how disrespectful and inconsiderate some of the students are, but the teachers can be parents, excuse me. But the parents can be 10 times worse. Hear me out. These human beings have to teach your children respect through taking away certain privileges because they can't behave. I am aware that some families are less fortunate and I don't have much time to spend with their families, but at least teach your children respect! Exclamation point, I'm not just yelling. These teachers work their butts off just to be disrespected by impolite parents and children all over again. Parents at least need to be mature people and teach their children not to be impolite to these teachers. Teachers try their best to educate your children and they blatantly ignore them. When teachers give kids a bad grade in class, that's not because of the teacher, that's because of the student. Teachers give the student the grade that they deserve. And if the child is applying themselves without making problems, it's guaranteed they will succeed. Parents need to learn to educate their kids about respect instead of the teachers. In conclusion to this paragraph, teachers deserve respect because they show up and try their best. The reason that I am doing this issue as an essay is because I see, hear, and witness how much impolite behavior that teachers, staff, and even the principal receive from parents and students because they may not have gotten their way. This is a daily struggle for most teachers, from bullying to harassment, which is not really what they signed up for. As an 8th grader, we should be the most mature out of the school. However, we manage to crash and burn when it comes to playing the maturity role. I just want the teachers to be treated with more respect and more money so they can afford things. Parentheses, kids like to steal things from the classrooms. In conclusion, this is what I would do if I were mayor. First, I would set up a board meeting with all the teachers from Riley Creek Elementary School. I would set up a type of speak your mind thing, that was in quotes, thing so they could talk to me about the issues they might have with teaching the class. While they would be talking, I would write all this down on my notebook and save it for later. After everyone is done speaking, I can go home and get to work about how I would fix these problems. I would make sure to let them know as well that there would be a follow-up conference about the issues we discussed. Writing down these things, I would think about how I could solve these problems. The next meeting, I would come out and ask the staff certain things that we had recently talked about and see if we could find solutions to the problems. If we agree on something, I would see what I could do to make sure the problem got solved. That is how I would get the issues fixed in schools for teachers.
You're a good reader.
Well, thank you very much. Good for something.
And the next one is McKenna Hopkins. And I'm going to ask you to read your own essay.
Come on, come on.
Would you like to read it?
Oh, I think McKenna, are you sure, McKenna? You don't want to give it a
She
try?
is so red, she
All
can
right.
die. You can't kill children, that's against the law.
Oh, well, McKenna Hopkins. You can stand. Can you stand at the podium? Okay, raise your hand so they know you're in the room. All right.
Is it the really red face?
If I was the mayor, I would tell you what I can do for the community and tell you about Gold Beach and what fun things you can do here. Let's say you're here on vacation and you don't know what to do while you're here. There are good viewpoints for sunset pictures and good ocean view hiking trails. One of the first things I would do as mayor is lower gas prices. With lower gas prices, you can drive more and travel more often, and with lower gas prices, more people can come to Gold Beach, Oregon. The second thing I would do as mayor is have more jobs like restaurants, so you can pay for the gas, and so you can buy clothes, food, supplies, etc. The third thing I would do as a mayor is build new buildings like a new school, stores, and a homeless shelter, and even more like campgrounds and RV parks. And I would want to try and get an arcade, with maybe even roller skating or bowling lanes in Gold Beach. Here are some facts about Gold Beach if you'd like to know. Gold Beach, Oregon has a population of 2,368. Gold Beach is only 40 miles away from the California border. Here are some things you can do in Gold Beach, Oregon. Jet boats, hiking, mountain biking, fishing with 5-star charter, hunting if you're into it, tide pooling, parades, fair, mostly in the end of July, the bazaar, go to Agnes to Cougar Lane, skate parks, geocaching, coffee shops, art gallery, Rogue River Apple Works, Jots Resort, Cedar Bend Golf Course, and Arch Rock Brewery. Thank you, McKenna. She will.
Okay, and our number one winner was Michaela Simmons, 7th grade also, not here tonight, okay. What I would do if I were mayor, find out how to help the community and save wildlife if I were mayor. Let's start with how I even got here. I'm Michaela Simmons, I'm 13 in 7th grade. I lived here for about 9 years, and I've learned a lot about the community here. We have about 2,400 people who populate this small town, and if you were here in the summer, there are many more people. This town is known for a lot of things, Kissing Rock, the Rogue River, Jerry's Road Jets, but what we are most known for is the gold rush on our beach, where there was a lot of gold. Now that you know more about this place, let's move on to what I would do if I were mayor. If I ever got the chance to become mayor, I would try to help this community. Things like helping clean up the streets, beaches, and rivers. And I would try to go out and help fix the signs and guardrails for people's safety. And I would finally set up plans for people of all ages to come and do fun activities with other people. The first thing we'd do is set up a foundation or donation to have people from all over the world help clean up the streets and beaches. Gold Beach gets totally trashed during the summer from people who roll through here on vacation. We have things like the Rogue River cleanup and beach cleanup, but we just need more help. Some wildlife gets sick from all this trash, and some even get stuck in it. Help from other people would also be good for this town. The second thing I would do is have people go out and do their best to take note of all the signs and guardrails that have been broken and need to be renewed. Then have someone try and find all of them and fix them. This would help new and already existing citizens drive safely. Being safe is a priority for this town, and not having good signs could stop that. For example, what if there was a broken crosswalk sign and someone didn't see it? Someone could get hurt. What if a deer crossing sign got hit and what if a deer crossing sign and somebody got hit by a deer because it had no warning? That is why we should work together to fix that problem. The third and final thing I always do is try to plan more events where everyone can be involved, kids, teens, and adults. If you need the money for it, we could start a donation fund. You could set up can drives and car washes, and if people really want to do this, if they would help. This town is small, and not everyone can drive places and go on vacation. If you want to make people happy about living here, make it fun. To sum this up, if I were mayor, I'd want to help this town be fun and interesting, not just for kids and teens, but for adults as well. I'd make this town a safer place and also make sure people are happy. So thank you. And if the children would like, and their parents don't mind, you can come up here and take pictures.
Oh, please do.
Come on, guys. Come on.
You can do it.
Mary, you want to stand with
Well,
us?
that's good.
We're going to stand up this way.
Did you make a drawing?
No.
Oh, okay, essays for you guys.
This is our essay. She's in
Well done, way to
middle,
do.
8th grade, really. 7th
Watch
grade.
the course.
7th grade.
Watch the courts, they're
Because
everywhere.
you don't need to hold your paper in. Well, do one with holding the paper and one with not holding the paper. There you go.
There, kiddo. I known her since she was tiny. She wouldn't tell me her name either. I'd forgotten it. Her grandmother's going to hate me.
And the one without the paper?
Watch your step.
Right, and then,
This way. So let's see, you're this one, right? No. No, you're this one. There we go. Anybody else? Did you guys want to do a group photo? I think you're friends.
Do you want to take a photo?
can we do a group photo? Is there anybody else out there who entered and didn't make the final three? Who turned in a drawing? No? All right.
See how good she is?
Why do you come here?
All right.
She's not turning red, but she's suffering.
So there's your steps. There you go. All right.
No personal.
So what happens next is the first place winners will move on to the statewide event. If they win, they will get paid trip to Hood River for the Oregon Mayor's Association. And we will also be sending checks out, and I need to write cards to those winners. It's 10, 25, 50?
What?
It was 10, 25, and 50, right?
Yes.
So $10 for third place, 25 for second, and you'll get $50 for first place. All right.
Very nice. And I would like to thank Barbara Wright, who is a middle school language arts teacher, and Kim Nye, who's a fifth grade teacher, who worked really hard promoting this contest and making it available to their students. And again, thank you to Mayor Kaufman for bringing it to my attention as I work on youth outreach. It's a pretty cool program. I'm looking to see more next year.
And I will tell you that I read a lot of entries. Some of them were not official, they were unofficial entries. But the students want our litter picked up. They care a lot about the homeless and that we should build a shelter. They care a lot about fast food and that we don't have any. Tell me advertising doesn't work. And they care a lot about our park. And our new public works superintendent is very excited about the park as well. So that might coincide together.
And
All right.
we have been doing youth outreach once a month at, we're really focusing on Riley Creek right now. So we've been going to the school with different groupings of us to do lessons and visit and check in and see what the kids want. We do also have, I know you guys are in elementary school and middle school. However, when you get to high school, we do have a student liaison spot on the council. Our student liaison isn't here with us tonight, but it is a position that you can hold as a high schooler at Gold Beach.
And you guys can always ask your teacher to invite us in. We'll be happy to come. Thank you, and I really appreciate your entries.
Well done.
Okay. Next up is Gold Beach Main Street Outreach Community Coordinator update, which again, I think we got a pretty good written update.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the drawings? Maybe share the URA? Maybe you could tell a little bit more about.
I know what you're talking about.
Are we gonna have Gold Beach Main Street address the council?
If they want to. But we did get a full multi-page report.
Right.
He does not want to present again.
Okay. Cool, thank you. Then, the next one is the HB 3115 discussion, which addresses homelessness and the order from the state that we have to do something. And I did put together Some information for the council. Don't think Administrator Pagano added anything to it. But I did include a copy of the House bill. I included a copy of the camping ordinance and section, and then homelessness and public space from the League of Oregon Cities. And I highlighted intentional community conversations, and I say that because it's my understanding that as we go through this discussion, that we do have to reach out to all populations and get their input, not just the people we want to talk to or the people that are ruled out. And we lost our entire audience. So would anybody, let's see, who's our starting vote tonight?
Counselor Madison.
Counselor Madison. That means Counselor Bradley's on the hot seat tonight to start. And if it helps, I'll reiterate, I still think that this is a really hard thing. We are going to have to come up with some ordinances, but I really think the solution is to welcome a nonprofit to take care of the problem, and we just stay out of their way. But I'm not the boss of Egypt. Go ahead, sir. Councilor Martinez.
Other people have experience doing this so far. Is that, I'm assuming that's what's driving your intentions beyond that, that there may be people that can handle this in a better way, or is it just because I feel that way. I was just in Eugene during this past week, and from this, from one of the highways going through the middle of town, you can see a small community, a sort of a purposely built little community. I didn't, investigate anything, but you can see it, and you can see a sign with which what I'm assuming is a nonprofit, and it looks like it is managed in a way. Just upon a brief glance at it. But it definitely doesn't, it's not, major housing. It's rather crude. Maybe crude is a bit too harsh, but it is.
Basic structure?
Basic structures. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything major. And, none of the structures were larger than a large tent. And so, fortunately, that's all the experience I can speak of. Is just glancing at something from afar. But since our hands are tied, we have to do something. It may be, considering the input we've received from our community discussions. I mean, over half the citizens don't want to do anything.
It's actually not.
No,
Was that not exactly accurate?
But finish your side. No crosstalk.
So, we have a difficult decision to make, and if we're unable to come to an agreement, then yeah, perhaps we find someone with an outside opinion and outside objective or viewpoint, perspective, excuse me, to come in and tell us, hey, here's our idea. And I don't know if we'll be married to that idea. I just wonder if that is some sort of a bid that we can receive. I would definitely be open to that, considering, as I understand it, we have to do something. And, thank you.
Councilor Skinner.
Sorry for interrupting. I was just trying to figure out those numbers earlier today. I'm like, oh, so I figured out the numbers. I was looking back at the special counsel project, the listening session that we had, and it was the data table that went with the sticker charts. And it is over half to do no services, no designated area at 27 votes of the 60. And then 26 votes for a designated area with rudimentary covered structures. So over half would say no services. However, when I was looking at the breakdown, there were 27 who said no designated area, no services. However, 39 people said to have a designated area, and then within that, 3 said no structures, 26 said rudimentary structures, and 10 said fully enclosed. However, with what you said when you started, that was a self-selected group of people who attended that event, so it's not a whole range. But looking at that again made me feel that there was an understanding that something, the majority was looking at doing something. Then as I was prepping for tonight, I was just looking through, and my husband, Administrator Pagano, I can email you my notes, but my biggest there, in the email that you sent, or in the packet you sent, the question was like questions for lawyers. Like, I'm really concerned with the do nothing idea, because I don't want to have Gold Beach in the headlines like Grants Pass and those other places. So, well, that's the challenge for the group that is wanting no designated area and no service. I'm just not sure as a council member how I can put my name on something like that when the law is stating something different. Or that puts us in a space where we could see a lawsuit that puts the city at risk, both its reputation and its finances. So I'm really concerned about that. As far as what to do, that's also a question, and I know lawyers around the district, the federal district that we're in, have been looking at it. I've attended multiple LOC events where they've been talking, their lawyers have been talking, other cities have been talking about what they've been doing. It really does seem that the best practical solution is for us to ease the way for a nonprofit to have some sort of site with wraparound social services. The way that was done in Bend for the 2 facilities I toured that were like a, kind of like a village sound setup, like similar to what it sounded like you saw in Eugene. The two I toured in Bend. One was specifically for veterans, and that had been started by a father and son, and I don't remember the details of their nonprofit, to get people into housing, and with the intent that it can be transitional and then get paired with other social supports, like Orca has. What was the group that does the matching savings account to get like First West?
That was neighborhood something, I think.
Yeah, to do something to help people get, because it's not like you can be homeless and then go find a rental, right? Like it's $4,000 or something to get First, Last, and whatever else, and you have to have a credit score. So it's a complicated process to transition. So both the facilities in Bend did not have like a short limit on how long people stayed. But anyway, run by a nonprofit. The other is run by St. Vincent de Paul. The land for both, I believe, was donated. The city, and that's a role we could take, so again, donated land, nonprofit management, but what the city of Bend did is they waived every fee they could possibly waive. They offered their endorsement, I think, on grants and things like that. So that, to me, at this point, seems the best solution. Now, how we find a nonprofit that's willing to do that, Mayor Kaufman knows a lot of people. I don't know. Yeah.
Is it okay if she finishes?
No. Is it a question for me or a question for what this? Do you want to ask now or do we?
It's your time.
For whatever Bend is doing right now with the House Bill 3115, they are being sued right now also. Just
So
so
that's
you're
for
aware.
their House Bill piece. These are those 2 shelters by the nonprofit, so I was going there. So yeah, super fun. So that's not their house, but whatever, that's the piece of where people were looking at for some kind of structure with a nonprofit. Those are the two examples of that. So for the time, place, and manner piece, for the homelessness, a couple of questions for the lawyer. That's confusing. Within that, I don't know, whatever subsection 195.510, it's on page 30 of the packet. It says the law, that the new law doesn't apply to places designated for day use. But I know Grants Pass isn't touching the Riverside Park, they're not, and that's set up for day use. So with our Buffington Park, which is set up for day use, it still seems people around the state and around the federal district are hesitant to even test those waters. But according to the law, that's an option. The other piece I was wondering about are costings to the city around police monitoring of whatever space we do designate, if that's how we choose to go, how we would go about funding that or extending their coverage or whatever that might lead to. Also, I was thinking on the proactive side, some sort of incentive to help people to go to a designated site, because I imagine there's going to be people who are so not going to go. There's going to be people who are like, oh yeah, I'll go, and then there'll be a group in the middle. So if there's something we could do as a city to incentivize that group in the middle to move to a designated area, I thought that would be good. I also know the expansion of the second case, I forget which case is which, but the second case on the timeline of this, about cars and RVs. So I would like the city to be considering a designated spot for cars and RVs as well as individuals without vehicles. And then there's the whole question of if the cars and RVs can run or cannot run, but a designated spot there. And then I really would like to come back to the idea, and I don't believe it's happened, of bringing together a focus group of individuals in our community who have been working with people who are unhoused. What came to mind in my brainstorm tonight on my note-taking, Jim Johnson, who's been working out of the old library building, the Homeless Coalition, ADAPT, Barry Kimbrough, and the people at the Seventh-day Adventist Church who've been working with the shelter. Erin Porter does behavioral health for All Care, and she's, her home base is here in Gold Beach. Chief White, Ryan Baxter's new to his role, but he would be involved. And of course, the mayor, Anthony, about people who've been interacting with individuals who are homeless. It came up a lot at the listening session at the library about the actual numbers and who are the people who are homeless. And we had someone just asked me yesterday, one of the preachers in town asked about the categories of homeless, and just the legal definition is you're homeless or you're not homeless, and there's different examples, but there's a lot of people looking at, like categories, like we could have multiple families living in one house, right? We could have someone living out of their car or RV or in a tent at a campground or in the street or down behind one of the coffee shops, right? So there's that range. And this bill was really addressing the range on I think at this workshop at the library, they had like that color-coded scheme of what homelessness looks like, or what housing looks like from one end to the other. But with that in mind, I think having some numbers, and maybe that focus group could actually get it, can make this conversation more real for people, and stories of who the people are that are experiencing this. And that is one thing that did do when they were creating those, helping the nonprofits. That's something else, I don't know how the city could help or how exactly that worked, but they did make an effort in public relations to tell the stories of people, to humanize the people in this conversation. Because it's a really hard conversation, and there's no easy answer, and it's a legal mess. I will say the other piece of that, and I know we talked about it before, maybe during the workshop, is based on the meetings that I've been to and the workshops I've been to so far. There is really a best practice for bringing people into the conversation with the lived experience. And there's good ways to do that and not so good ways to do that, but I really think having a truly informed community conversation would involve having a conversation with people who, including in the conversation, bringing into the conversation people who have experienced homelessness. And that is my long notes.
I wasn't able to write down all your lawyer questions. Could you maybe email them?
Yeah, I did say, I'll email my notes.
Thanks. I'm sure you didn't get them either.
The only one I got is, what happens if we do nothing?
No, we can't protect our public property, that's what happens. Mr. Vera, or Councilor Vera.
Well, I mean, as it stands now, I feel like we have no ability to protect our public properties to really a high level. I think one of the things I'd like to find out is where the ADA lawsuit on the encampment in Portland that was blocking walkways, how the courts made the decision to do that. Because if that ends favorably, that really gives us an avenue to prevent, the blocking of thoroughfares. I think that by having that protection already, even a do-nothing attitude puts you in a much better place because you can deal with that. Secondary to that, I read through the House bill. I'm sure that someone smarter than me will come up with a good way to work on an appeal system for this, now that it's come through and someone's going to bring it up. Very specifically, one of the things on there was it's listed as financially non-burden. I laughed. If I was more inclined to cry, I would have. My pillow probably got punched, I don't know. But for a lawmaker to even pretend like that has no financial impact on a small community. In here it says that if you designate a space, you have to give them notice for removal. It then gives you exceptionally vague circumstances that state, let's see if I can see it, but it's that materials must be kept. So if they leave anything behind, you now have to make a decision on storing that. Utility, the value, and then you're given some leeway based off of the level of it being insanitary. The amount of space that we could probably use up just trying to meet that requirement. I have a piece of property that is close to a favored walkway that both citizens and homeless citizens use, and the amount of clothing that ends up there. I've been on fires on the beach for campsites that, for better or for worse, they have abandoned, and there has been enough clothing there that if we had to remove it by hand, we would have easily filled a few dumpsters. And it was in a relatively visual space, which tells me that occupancy of that space maybe was a week. And I don't mean to shame or to name call or anything like that, but the amount of times I've watched someone go to one of these opportunities for help, specifically it's been over at DHS, when they're providing items, it's always clothing. And I've seen people walk away with a bag of clothing. You will never see them with a bag of clothing again. You watch as they walk, and they rummage through it, and you see things get thrown to the side. So are we liable to keep track of all of those items? Because, I mean, when you're homeless, any piece of clothing, I would consider that to be a necessity. You have no shelter. So by definition, anything that could provide a shelter space is valuable. Determination of it being sanitary. You're telling me I have to create a space with public dollars for someone to be. And it's one of those, I mean, we have people that live out of cars, they're on the streets. They do not get hassled, rarely, unless they're leaving items on the ground. And that's when they pull up and you kind of look at the car and you're like, I know, but you turn the blind eye until the contents of the vehicle have now exploded across the road. That's when it becomes a problem. So how are you going to interact with that scenario anyways? You put them in say we have a parking space for it, and we say, you can be here. The tendency to ditch items, you see it on all of our turnouts, going up and down the space. Are we liable for what's happening out on the beach? That's state property, but at the same time, we don't want to see that just become trash. I mean, it talks about the local jurisdiction. Does that mean that as long as it's on the beach, we can, I don't know, do you send it to Salem? So they opt for going out that way. Now, if you try and say you want to move someone along, do you gain anything there? You're welcoming so many burdens to come through, and again, I just keep going back to that fiscal part, and I assume somebody will probably come through on one of our listservs and put the time to say, okay, state what for the location of storage, how long? When I read through this, and I pulled up the original one, and I was having a hard time finding a spot that said how long you have to hold somebody's stuff. It just says store. It seems like something that you probably put at the very beginning. You say, hey, stored, parenthesis, a month, 2 months, 48 hours. So where's that line drawn? I mean, if it's, hey, if they don't come and claim it in 24 hours, it's no longer considered necessary. Okay, that's something that you can hash out. This is incomplete then, by that very definition. The vagueness just tells you that it's incomplete. It's pushed through because it was backed by our governor before she was a governor, and now it is just, it's flying through, and I believe me when I say I don't mean anyone ill will. I really don't. I would argue that when it comes to volunteering, I would like to put myself at least somewhere in the top 50%, based on the amount of times I've gotten up at 2 a.m. and I do it happily, and I hope to do it happily forever. But this is just, this is back to where, we had a conversation about the ball back in the state's court. But this is so forced that there's nothing for you to be able to do. And when we had our meeting there, it was, you have a space, as soon as they get trespassed from there, why do they get trespassed? If it was for fighting, okay, was it, did they get in a fight because they were doing drugs or something like that? Well, if you say that someone can't be somewhere because of drugs, that is considered a barrier of entry. I'm sorry, you get something for free, and then you're like, hey, I'm gonna, put myself and others into danger, and you just consider that a barrier of entry, which means that regardless of what we've put, that there's no longer a space for them. They have now full free reign to do as they would have prior to that location being available. And so, it's pretty easy to make that connection and say, hey, and I am sure there will be a fair number of attorneys that will make a fair amount of money in the coming days off of this. And I don't know, I would like to see what legal counsel has to say. I would ask that for our city manager space, I know there's a listserv for the mayor's space, there's a listserv, and to see if anyone is sharing any of those concerns. Because, and I guess I'm in a liaison position, so I'd love to get a couple of the law enforcement locations to see what that sounds like from their end. You know, are municipal judges frightened? Are they saying, yeah, we're just not going to deal with it? You know, you hear the doom and gloom on the TV all the time, but this is one of those scenarios where somebody's sending out something that's incomplete, and I think it's going to do a lot of harm. And I think our best bet is to give it a moment to see where it's going to go, because the only folks that currently we have an issue with have a tendency to find themselves in our jail system as well. And so it's just not, it just doesn't seem like a good system so far. We want to have a conversation about doing other stuff, you know, talking about addiction help and things like that. I would happily throw myself into that endeavor, but yeah, I'm sorry. We're getting forced into a situation, and I don't like anything about it at all. But I'm very concerned that no matter what you choose to do, if somebody's looking to sue the city or to make your life difficult, it's going to happen. And that is very much on the basis of just the letter of what is written into this bill.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to clarify a couple things. One, this was a bill that was passed with the emergency clause, so there is no remand. It cannot be changed unless the legislature does it. And while we do live in a Trump county, we live in a state that's governed by the Blues. And the Blues say this is what we're going to do. So if we do nothing, then our parks are going to be overtaken and all of our public lands will be overtaken, is the way I understand it. Which is my question for the lawyer is, if we do nothing, what is the worst case scenario? The second thing is that I think we need to support our law enforcement somehow. We need to give them the tools to be able to deal with the problem. And the other thing I have a question for the attorney is the statute, the House bill refers to the statute 131705, subsection 3, which says that public property means public lands, premises and buildings included not limited to buildings used in connection with the transaction of public business or any lands, premises, or building owned or leased by this state and any political subdivision therein. So that tells me, the DHS office over here that's leased, that people can camp anywhere they want outside that property when this is enacted. Now, I could be wrong, but that's how I read it. That means that our parking lot, that the county fairgrounds, that the county building, I don't know, the schools were not exempted that I can see. But Jody told me, former Administrator Fritz said that our attorney said, no, it only applies to parks, but that's not what this says. So I need clarification from the attorney from that. I think our attorney needs to be here and answer our questions. But I don't know if the council wants to spend the money for that. And I know that attorneys like to have prepared questions because they don't like to be put on the spot. So it's up to the council. And then I was going to give the staff a chance to speak if they had input.
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I feel from the law enforcement perspective, we're waiting for someone to do something that gives us direction as to what we can do. For example, the parks, you know, it's arguably we can enforce trespassing regulations after hours and things. But the last information I have from legal counsel is please don't be the first one to do it. It has the potential we can ask people to leave, but when people refuse to leave, our only option is to arrest. And that puts us in a position of a wrongful arrest suit. And, you know, I nor any of the officers want to put the city of Gold Beach in that position to be the guinea pig to see what the courts say we really can or can't enforce in our parks. So we've taken a very proactive approach to be kind and try to gain as much cooperation as possible. The storage of property and managing that has been, thank goodness we fenced in the back lot when we did, because that's where it mostly ends up. We have a lot of property and we don't know who it belongs to. We end up holding it longer because those people might be in jail for a period of time, and that means they can't come claim it. So it puts us in a bit of a conundrum, just managing all of the different elements of this, and we haven't even fully experienced what the true implications are going to be. Go for it.
Other cities, majority of other cities right now on listserv, city manager listserv is, they're going with camping ordinances. That's how they're trying to, they've enacted them a while ago and they're working on them now, and that's kind of how they're trying to resolve the issue themselves. Majority are moving forward with camping ordinances on House Bill 3115. I don't know if that works for us, but
So if I understand the premise, because we're going to allow you to camp X, Y, and Z by changing your camping ordinance, you now can't camp on our public property. Okay, is that what I'm understanding?
and then you identify what camping is, and all that stuff in there. And there's a lot of draft ones out there for the ordinances, but legal counsel wouldn't give us any type of just temporary type boilerplate thing to use, because everywhere's different.
When I know the city and the county has both pretty much looked the other way with the illegal camping on private lots because we have a housing shortage, and a lot of people are renting a space that they can't legally rent for their RV on a private lot. And I know the county hasn't been enforcing it, and I don't think we have either. But eventually we're probably going to have to, unless we allow that use. And I know at least one city has done that. I think it's kind of crazy to do that because you get yourself in a landlord tenant issue, but as a private owner, but it is happening. So is that something we want to throw on the wall as a possibility?
I feel like that doesn't solve the main issue that we're going to face in that scenario. The folks with RVs and situations like that, they're still going to be able to go to the state spaces. Anything that's not owned by us, even with our passing an ordinance that says, hey, I can rent out, connect them to my clean out next to my house. On some of our city streets, yeah, but we already have rules for the road that is a certain level of parking time in that location, especially if the vehicle's in disrepair, I suppose, because then it's storage of a vehicle on the street. So, I mean, that's a conversation we can have. I know that a lot of our RV parks and things like that start to fill up, but I also know there would be a lot of pushback from that kind of scenario. But realistically, that doesn't solve the kind of the frightening part of the House bill in terms of people's camping situations. I think the highest impact is going to be folks that have no vehicle option or anything like that.
So what I threw out there is, do you want to do the camping ordinance? And that might include allowing people to lease these spaces like they've been doing illegally.
So, can I say how I'm understanding it to see if I'm understanding?
I don't understand what you're saying.
So, if we do a camping ordinance to address the House bill, by doing that, what's happening right now, unofficially, will fall under that camping ordinance. So we'll have the people who are just letting people park their RVs or stay on their property.
It could.
It could do that. Also, I do know from meetings that they're also in the camping ordinance allowing individuals, I think there were some in the comments at the event, the listening session, some do-gooders who the city gave them permission to let people just camp, set up tents on their private property too, which would, similar to this, where there might be a financial gain, but doing that just as a charitable act kind of piece of having people on their property, which, again, is an insurance nightmare. So a camping ordinance is an option to look at. I know the person at the mayor in Myrtle Point, sometimes, was he the one that was the optimistic guy? Is that the right one that was at Coquille? I know they put theirs in order already. And you would look at the list of who's been sued or not, but that list keeps changing every day. But I'm glad you brought up the storage of things that was on my list, and I forgot to ask another financial burden piece. But I agree with Mayor Kaufman, this isn't going to be, I don't foresee this changing. I am hoping that the Advocacy League of Oregon Cities is doing to get that additional funding, so it's not an unfunded mandate. I too laughed out loud as opposed to crying when I read the economic impact statement on that. But there are, on the storage thing, there are rules on times and the length of duration I saw in one of the meetings, but is there an example you have other than a camping ordinance, Mayor or Administrator Pagano?
That's not in lawsuit right now, no.
I know originally Administrator Fritz had a carve-out idea. I don't know, but that would have been city managed, right?
Would have been city-owned, managed, police managed,
Yeah.
None
and
of us want to do that, do we?
No, and that was the problem is, yes, we could do that carve out, but truly it becomes the issue that we can't police it. And then,
So our best bet would be a camping ordinance that would give a place for people to go, whether in their car or some sort of shelter, and then have some rules around that, in addition to maybe trying to encourage a nonprofit into coming up with some more of a permanent solution.
I've got probably 4 or 5 draft ones in my email that I can send to you guys to review if that's something you want to do. If you're looking into the camping one, I can send them to you, what other cities have done.
And then my understanding from your message earlier is that we have to move forward with something now in order to have it through the official legal adoption process by July 1st or whatever the date is. So waiting isn't really an option any longer. We've waited. So we're at the end of having to act or to be out of compliance. Is that on the timeline? Yeah.
Which is why I asked if we do nothing, if we don't meet the deadline, what happens? And I have my idea of what doomsday looks like, but I'm sure the lawyer has a better way of wording it.
And none of the kids' essays had answers?
What?
I'm looking at the kids' essays, and none of them had the solution right there,
They
huh?
want us to build shelters. So what I'd like the council to do is try to get focused on, even if it's a temporary solution, what are we going to do, what are we going to work on, because we're going to have something in draft by May so that we can approve it with an emergency in June if we're going to be doing it on time. So we've got to get focused, stop being so spatial, and think about what are we going to do to address this, because it's not going away. And it's really not that different than Martin D. Boise or the Grants Pass lawsuit. It's just putting it in writing exactly what we must do. People are going to sit, lie, rest, whatever those words
Well,
were.
and they expanded it to include the stay warm.
Yeah, there's a complete definition of what we have to allow. And whether we like it or not, it's what we have to do. And or I think we lose our right to enforce getting people off the property, which could ruin a lot of our assets. So what would you like the administrator to do for the next meeting?
My first thought was that we could email you our questions And then you could send those out for a review to see if anybody else had any more to add, and then we could send that specific list to the lawyer. But again, thinking about it more though, the questions kind of seem like they're important, but we have to move forward doing something regardless of the answers. And I don't know that the answers will inform a different decision.
We weren't really taking public input, but I guess we could.
Just a question. I know Brookings is moving forward with warming shelters. The little bit I can follow what's happening down there, they've at least adopted an ordinance to provide for warming shelters, and now there's talking about, with all the people who came together recently, the need to have a designated place and then be prepared. As you know, we had a warming shelter in Gold Beach. We weren't allowed to tell anyone where it was, but we had it. I was there probably as much time as anyone. I was there the day we set it up. I was there many nights. Went out and up and down the roads looking for people in their vehicles. Found not a young man who was transferred to our hospital from California and left outside. They at least gave him warm clothes, a tent, and a sleeping bag, and he was waiting for the rain to stop so he could go out and camp somewhere. It may not satisfy the statute, but I'd really be disappointed if Brookings moves forward with something that Gold Beach doesn't. And a warming shelter triggered by temperature is the least that the city should do. I won't get into the dispute about homeless people. My wife's cousin's son was a victim of a crime in Canada and barely lived. Probably a year later, we're having a dinner at a casino in California with my son and his family. And who's there? Stevie. He's still at loose ends. That was maybe 2 years ago. They buried Stevie this month. Yet, God, to realize that these aren't people that are strangers. These are family members. I have other family members who could have been homeless if I hadn't stepped in. You've got to do something. These aren't evil people. They need help and they need a warm place. You don't throw clothes away if you have a place to store them and a place to wash them. You keep them because you need them. We served a lot of people overnight. We had more people that stopped by before we locked the door at 10 o'clock to pick up blankets and pillows and food to take out to their vehicles. We need at least a warming shelter. And maybe starting that process would at least show, if you can't quite get to where you ought to be by July 1 on the bigger issue, at least you can address that issue. And so we don't have people freezing to death in the bushes of Gold Beach again.
I'm not going to touch that.
I want to answer Mr. Pagano's question. Yes, I would like to see, if you would please email us what other cities have done. Thank you.
And maybe we can give feedback to Mr. Pagano so that we can hopefully have something formulated for the May meeting. So please check your emails every week and respond to Mr. Pagano, please. Councilor Jenner.
I would like to see, and I know Counselor Madison had been helping with the warming shelter things. I'd be curious to see what Brookings is doing, but I know Grants Pass has done some things in the past. I know they worked with the school district and did something in one of their buildings. So I'm not sure the city's official rule or what different cities have done, or what Gold Beach may or may not have done in the past, but if you could pull that up too. Hopefully, we're not in a horrible need for warming shelters again until next fall, but it would be something to bring up. And I know, like I said, the city of Grants Pass has done something, and it sounds like the city of Brookings is doing something. So on another table, on another note sheet.
I believe that Mr. Regano is going to a meeting with the county on that subject. The Humboldt Area Foundation made those warming shelters happen. It was done with Brookings Correspondence and Northern Coast Community Action. They're not city functions, they're nonprofit functions, and that's who did it. The city has an ordinance to allow it, and the city has given that information to nonprofits for several years, and until somebody died, nobody wanted to pick it up. And then it got picked up. And we don't have the insurance or the capability to do this as a city, but we can stay out of people's way, which is what we did. Okay. Are we done with the subject? Okay, we're going to move on to Beacon Broadband's franchise draft. Council, Administrator Bergano.
So we've been working with Beacon Broadband and legal counsel to get their franchise agreement done. We finally finished it last week, and Beacon has the guy that's going to review it is out of the office. So this is the draft ordinance that we will have in place for Beacon Broadband for the franchise agreement. And I just wanted to keep it in the packet so you guys can check it out for the next meeting.
Is there an urgency to approve this next month, or?
I don't know. They should be getting close to here, so.
Okay. I think we still have to approve these 2 months, so I don't think we have to do an emergency clause, which are not my favorite thing to do, as most of you know.
Mayor?
Yeah, I think we'll have plenty of
Councilor Skinner.
time.
Administrator Pagano, there are still two spots that say Brookings on that draft, page 35 and page 37.
Good job.
And I feel like I'm failing as an former econ teacher right here. So does everybody have this, like Ziply and Charter, does everybody have the same kind of agreement? And then within it, I did not read it word for word, but in it, it did talk about location of the actual utility lines. I know that there has been the talk about underground. Can we ask them to favor underground, or like how does that work? And then what does the city do with the franchise fees? So, okay, site plus I'm gonna tell
The
her.
franchise fee goes into the general fund.
Okay, so that goes in the general fund, and is it then just dedicated to certain things by the budget?
It typically goes to law enforcement. That's where all of our general fund pretty much goes. And we asked them at the last meeting that they were at if they could underground, and they said no.
They said they could.
So it'll be part of the underground project if we go there.
Okay, and then, so they just said no, they couldn't do it.
You were here.
They do have a piece inside the draft here that says that if, say, we were to say, okay, all of 101's going to be underground, it is, let's see if I can find it for you. But basically, it states that they'll comply to
They'll comply
to
with that
any
decision.
requirement that results in it. And I don't believe it said that they would be trying to finagle monies for it. It would be at their, yes, but don't quote me on that because you can't see it.
I just,
Should have highlighted it.
I was just curious on the franchise fee thing on how that works, since we are looking at unfunded mandates. And since they typically go to law enforcement, that would be part of this whole unfunded mandate thing is going on your guys' shoulders, so maybe it could be targeted towards that. I was pleased to see that Beacon's working really hard to make the accessibility to their service, partnering with federal programs, so there's not like a need for, or I mean, expectation, probably there's not a way that would be done, that the city would use that franchise fee to support access to the services, but maybe we could use that 5% that's coming at a need when we have, a time when we have need. Maybe that's something we can look at. Thank you for putting the draft together, and
We're on page 35. I found 37, but I'm not finding page 35.
I'm surprised they
it
didn't.
says right at the top above section 1, the city of Brookings
Oh.
remains.
Thank you.
No, I kind of like that. The City of Brookings says they're gonna give us money to use city stuff.
Good job reading. Anybody else? Okay. Public hearings none, citizen agenda items. Is there anybody online?
Yes.
I'm gonna ask them if they want to speak. If it's Steph, the answer's no.
There is that.
If there's anybody online that would like to speak, you can type in the chat or ask to unmute.
We've got Steph and one person that called in, but I don't know who that is. Nope, and they just hung up, so we're good.
Okay. So, moving on, so we're into the consent calendar. Did you have a chance to look up my questions, sir?
Yes, so it is through March, but the amounts are not the same because Shelby's currently fighting with PERS on getting an answer to a question so she can balance the last 2 months.
Okay.
And I didn't get you my questions. I have one specific and then a general one that you guys might be able to help. My specific one, so I feel like I should find the document for the budget line and go find the budget lines and be able to figure it out, but I didn't do that. So just, there was more training and travel, which is always good, but I'm just curious on, I don't know if you know the budget lines, but it was United Rentals, it was 2 charges of $775, budget line 2340, it's on page 9. It's just nice to know what people are getting trained for.
That was probably the law enforcement training.
775?
2 of them, from 2 different budget lines.
That was probably the thing that you guys did with Josh Dowd, I guess. I didn't know the city had anything to do with it officially.
I'll have to
That's
look.
what we
I
had
don't,
United Rentals for.
I don't have the consent calendar up.
And then my other question, as we are doing the budget process, this is my second time through, and it's not my forte to be a detail-oriented person, but it seems like I know we had it scheduled, did we schedule chip 2? I feel we scheduled 2. Like a workshop piece where like we're looking at those numbers, like the ones that are like, below 60% of their estimated use for the year, like those ones probably need to be adjusted, and the ones that are above, but I'm not sure the process of how that happens. I know you asked us for some ideas on what we wanted to be focused in, and I don't know what my role as a counselor is in that, if any, or if that's the staff prepares all that.
So I'll prepare the budget, but I want ideas of where you want those funds to come. Like, so if there's an abundance left in one category, you can look at moving those funds somewhere else. As long as they're not, have to be used for certain things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the numbers, so the fiscal year ends for the city June 30? No,
Yes,
June 30. And our budget meeting this month or next month?
it's in May.
It's in May next month. So should we be looking at the numbers, the year-to-date numbers kind of now to gauge what we're
Yep.
suggesting?
That's what he's going to do. What we're going to do is tell him, we really want you to find $100,000 for the park. I'm not saying.
100?
You need
400?
to tell him that I need you to earmark money for something for the council to say we did. And he figures out if he can find it.
Okay.
Because if we ask him for $100,000 after the budget's created, it'd be really hard to find it. It might be hard to find it.
And you want,
If I may finish, the other thing is that the city has always been really good about, hey, if you don't need to spend your budget, don't. We're not gonna cut your budget next year if you still might need it. So if staff says, like, if the chief says, you know, I got a really good deal on these 5 things this year, but I still need it next year because I don't know if I'm gonna get a good deal, if we just line item cut it because he didn't spend it, then he's gonna spend it all because that's what government people do. We've never been in that government mindset, if it's in the budget, we have to spend it. We use it as cash carryover and then allow it for the next year. So I wouldn't
cash carryover
expect,
in the same budget line?
cash carryover is your beginning fund balance, which has always been weak in our accounting system. Hopefully it'll be better this year. We've had a conversation about it already. And then, so your beginning fund balance is what's left over. It's supposed to be what your ending fund balance is, but it actually isn't, whatever your audit number is. God, how did I just say that like it was easy?
Because you've learned a lot since
So,
you were a kiddo at Riley Creek.
yeah, so I'm hoping that we'll have a pretty good budget, and I do expect a little bit more work on it this year than most, but our budgets don't change that much. Construction does.
And Public Works this year has had a lot of construction work, so they haven't spent much of their budget,
They've been busy.
Yep.
And we've been really short-handed this year,
which
in
is,
almost every department, so we haven't spent all of our labor. So we kind of segued off of the consent calendar.
Well, those were all numbers from the consent calendar. I was wondering how to utilize them, sorry.
Nope, good. Anybody else? Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar as provided.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion from Councilor Bradley to approve the consent calendar, and a second from Councilor Martinez. Any discussion? And I will call the question. Councilor Bradley.
Aye.
Councilor Martinez.
Aye.
Skinner.
Aye.
Aye.
We are. Why do I have such a hard time remembering your name?
It's got too many vowels. Wheel of Fortune expensive.
Yeah, okay. And next up is our new council liaison roles. That's supposed to be ES.
What, where are you at?
It says ROLLS. I don't think that's right. And I'm
No,
not the grand police.
it's not correct. Though we might roll out.
Just a
of the
small
room if
typo.
we stay too late.
I keep switching to the wrong glasses. Give me this factor again. I'm on the wrong document. Okay, so to verify, we have Councilor Madison for Golden Main Street and the Event Center on the Beach, LPSCC Lipstick for Councilor Vieira, Fire Consolidation, Councilor Bradley and Councilor Vieira, School District, Councilor Martinez, and Curry Health Improvement Plan, Councilor Skinner. Is there anything else anybody would like to be added to? Mr. Bergana, would you mind, like, at the bottom of our agenda, just kind of keep that, hold these there so I don't forget?
the liaison roles.
Yeah. Sure. You can put it in small print. All right.
The one that we have Georgia City, you want this one?
That's a little different. It's not, it's your decision. Because they're like, what's supposed to be? It's a weird thing. Okay. Then we we have a budget committee appointment, and Counselor Madison vouched for Mr. Mark Stender to be on the budget committee, and I trust her opinion, so I would like to appoint Mr. Stender. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to appoint Mr. Mark Stender to the Budget Committee.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Counselor Martinez, seconded by Counselor Skinner. Any discussion? Counselor Bradley?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously 4-0. Can't believe we're this far in the meeting, we only had 2 motions.
I know, I was just thinking that same thing.
Okay. Land trust discussion. I gave you lots and lots of reading. I don't know how much of it you did. But we are looking at possibly purchasing some property that we can't talk about location at this time. That would be used for workforce housing. And the question is, do we want to look into a land trust or some other type of ownership rather than city ownership, private ownership? Because the goal is, the original council goal was to provide workforce housing long-term perpetual, where if it goes into the private market, the first person will buy into it and get it at the discount, but then in the future, it'll be at market rate. And so then we lose what we invested in. And so, and to my knowledge, no entity, including the health district or the fairgrounds or the school districts, want to own property, just like we don't want to own property because nobody wants to manage it. So another entity might be a solution. So with that, I'm going to see what the council will say. Would you like to start, sir?
You know, I like the idea of the land trust, because a lot of effort been put into, well, this property for direction our citizens need it, and while I don't think we need to be the owners, it definitely think that we need to make sure our intentions live on beyond our terms.
Councilor Martinez?
I don't have much to add. I very much would like to discuss that more, about a potential land trust.
Okay.
For the reasons Councilor Bradley stated, and for the reasons the mayor has stated.
Okay. Councilor Skinner? She recommends.
It was very interesting. I did not get through all the material that you had sent. May I request that when it gets sent out, an estimated of, this is maybe how much time you need to look at that, because I did not budget enough time. It sounds interesting. And to be on the edge of something is always pretty exciting and a good way to draw more energy and funds and good attention. But we're not on the very edge. It said there's over 250 at the time of the article, and I didn't grab the date, so I'm guessing there's probably over 300 now of these land trust. There was 2, the limited equity corporation land trust, some hybrid, some individual. It sounded like an interesting idea to pursue. You were talking about earlier tonight the lot of possibilities in economic development. I just really like to view it as community development, like those things that help develop our community, and this idea in the research they were citing, this idea of community wealth building. And I think you're a very strong leader in a lot of things around housing. I think that we could carry some momentum and try it. It uses a nonprofit steward, right? So it's not the city or anybody like that being involved. I know on the East Coast they have a system of rent control put in place. My aunt's apartment in Philadelphia, which died 2 years ago, was still $480 a month. I'm like, that's what mine is, so, or was in Beaverton. But the point being, I like that idea. You still need, it sounded like from what I did read, that people still need to be able to qualify. They have to have a banking existence and need to qualify for loans and still do that, but at least it gets people's foot in the door and keeps it low-income housing. I was in one of the newer houses up and outside in Rogue Hills, and it's just unbelievable because, like, if you look at the house itself, it's a X number $1,000 house, but then you look at the price tag on it, and it's just they're just not meshing. So I would be interested in exploring this. What timeline there would we need?
I think we're planning about a year due diligence.
We would have plenty of time to
So
do
we have,
discussion.
probably we'd have to have an idea within 6 months what we want to do. The hospital wants to partner with us, and I'm guessing that there'll be other partners that want to be at the table, because they have the same problem. We have the same problem. We can't hire anybody from outside the area
Everybody
because
else.
there's nowhere to live. And so the problem is, they don't really want affordable. The demand right now is workforce, which is going to be over the 80% area median income, but up to about 200% of the area median income. And there's
And most
no
of these
funding
were-
for that. You know, if you want to go below the 80% area median income, there's funding for that. The state will fund that, the federal government will fund that. That other piece there isn't, which is why a land trust might work. And I'm interrupting you, I need to stop.
No, but no, you were answering, I think, a question. So I did not get through the whole packet. It sounded like most of these have been done for lower income, not
Correct.
workforce.
Correct.
But if there's that criteria that they have to be able to get a loan, they have to have the banking history established, then that would lend towards workforce housing.
So correct, this was not the exact model, but the trust idea, because the push is for workforce. We think we have the affordable piece in the works.
I would be interested in hearing from one of the places, I saw there are places in Washington and California that have been doing this, and Vermont. I would fly to Vermont and visit my sister. I'm sure that's not a misuse of city funds, right? And go visit the place in person. But I would like to hear a little bit more about that. And
Okay. Mr. Beer?
I'll have to tattle on myself and say that I did not make it very far into the 207 pages.
You get the concept of it.
Yes, well, they discussed a basic idea of what it looked like at the Housing Summit. It was a big discussion topic at that time. And I will say that I've been surprised that the hospital hasn't found itself in a position to want to force something like this already. I look at spaces that they own, and I think, man, you guys can sit there and have to look at it and say, hey, we're paying $175 for these traveling nurses and all this other stuff. It's like, man, you could really recoup a lot of that money off of them just by, having a housing space to turn around and put them in, especially because
what do they have?
for them it's very tricky. I look at like the center they have down in Brookings, I'm like, hey man, we're going to build on that hilltop. Here you go, but that's not our jurisdiction. So, especially if facilities like that are on board, I think not only helping individuals get into spaces to be, we've got a lot of young families that are going to be expanding, they're going to need spots. And if it saves things like the hospital money, I think that's going to be one of those things that really gives a kickback to the community. They're going to be able to invest in what services they're able to provide. So I definitely would never shoot that topic down. I'd have to familiarize myself more to make any other statements besides that, but generalized, I'm all for helping folks.
Okay.
At the summit, or from what you've done, what are the drawbacks that are presented with this model?
The hardest part is management, but I had
Like finding management and
right, because usually what ends up happening is they own the house and they lease the ground, and so somebody's got to make sure that people are still cleaning up their, the outside and make sure they're taking care of it, because it needs to be resold at some point. And Proud Ground might be the best partner. I didn't know that they were willing to leave Portland, but apparently they are. So if you guys are in favor of it, which it sounds like it is, that'll be my next conversation, is to talk to Diane.
An organization who's been doing this in Portland.
Somebody's already been doing it. They've got a couple in other areas in Oregon, but it's mostly in Portland. And they've been working a lot with Habitat for Humanity, because the Habitat for Humanity found the same problem that everybody else has. They help somebody build a house with sweat equity, and they have these volunteers build a house. Well, the next thing you know, that person got into this house at a low price. They sell it, they make a good profit, which is American, but now it's no longer an affordable house. And so they're like the little hamster wheel trying to help move a community forward, and it just lines one pocket instead of perpetually. Whereas Proud Ground, I think you're allowed like 20% equity right off the bat, and then whatever the real equity is, and then I think at the end of the day, at 10 years, you get to make like 25% or something like that. That's the formula of how much money you can make.
And it all cycles back around. Ran into Beth Barker Hidalgo when she was trying to hire someone for the Homeless Coalition to do outreach services, and she couldn't hire somebody because they didn't have a place to live. And her applicants for 3 people from out. So it all just goes together. So I'm curious, if we did it, it would be open. And I didn't ask you during the or anything like that. When the housing becomes available, so yours is like pure private sector piece that you're working on, but for something like this, how is it assigned, or which organizations take part, or?
If we created a land trust, then we would be doing probably a public appeal for cash, see if people want to donate to the nonprofit. That would be unrestricted development, building money, operation money. Plus, I believe that the hospital's willing to throw some money into the building, but they're going to want a seat at the table, and they're going to want to be able to have some of their people.
A number of spots.
And I actually thought that's how we could create the board, is you write a check, and now your organization gets a board position. And that's how organizations can get board position. And the city could be the original board. The city council could be the original board, like you are the urban renewal agency, and then you would have control of the original formation, but I don't think you want to do it forever. So I think you're going to want to have a way to get out of it. And I don't know that our staff even wants to consider being the developer. I know our public works can't do it, but they can supervise some of the work, but they can't. They don't have time. And it's expensive, isn't it? How much is a transformer for electricity?
It just went up.
They're 2 years out
Really?
for development like that, yeah. I'm fighting that right now.
We need to order some transformers.
Sounds like the chief is on board to start this development for us.
This is what I
Start
live
to
and breathe
finish.
the other 16 hours of the day, so I'd be happy to help.
Sage can do it. She's learning a lot every day.
I feel bad putting exceptional less time into it than you were.
So if I get some appointments to talk with Land Trust, who wants to join me or just give you reports?
I'd love to join you, but I don't know if I have time. Chip knows construction.
Okay. So I'll invite you all, and if you're available, great. If you're not, that's fine too. But if we're going to be 3 of us, I need to know so we can live with a public meeting. Cool. All right, next up. I want to remind everybody to do your Oregon Government Ethics Commission filing. If you don't, they're really mean about it, and they do fine you. I had to pay one in the past. Long past, when I was young. It was $100, and I didn't make $100, so it was fun. And next is our city administrator report. I didn't see one attached.
I didn't prepare anything.
Okay.
Just update, we're working on the park, we're trying to move forward with getting the bathrooms open.
I don't think everybody knows about that. What are you doing with bathrooms?
Reopening them.
With? What kind of fixtures?
We found the prison style, they're actually called prison style. The stainless steel, we'll get the bathrooms replaced with stainless steel. We're gonna do gate doors so that you can't kick them in, it's not gonna be warm in there, it'll be air will blow in and out, no privacy type thing, so do your business, get back out. Yeah, so we've got 3 bids out right now to see what they come in at, and hopefully we can get those moving rather quickly.
Are we doing both bathrooms or just the one side?
Just decided by the softball field for right
The
now.
middle side? Okay. What's going on with the dangerous building?
Getting tore down, almost done. We were going to fill the space with it, with the material that was there, and we decided not to, so we're going to do something different there because it's commercial space. If we filled it with not the correct fill, we'd have to pull it back out and disclose that it wasn't the right fill, so we went ahead and changed our mind and we're filling it with what it needs to be, engineered fill. So that's gonna move forward. We saved a bunch of money because we trucked our own cement out, the port agreed to take it, so we saved a bunch of money there, and it's just being dumped down at the port. That's about it.
Did they find more asbestos?
Nope.
Then he must have good asbestos dogs.
We do really have dogs.
No.
Dogs are amazing.
But I remember in the original report, he said there may be some other hidden, so, and I knew they dug it really slowly.
Yeah, they did, and they did a really good job actually of cleaning it, and when I went back in there, I was pretty impressed at how nice it looked. From what it was before.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, counselor comments. Counselor Bradley.
Just on a humorous one, did you find the secret tunnels that were rumored underneath there on Facebook?
Supposedly they were closed a long time ago, filled in a long time ago, so no.
So no Al Capone ball, okay. No, I've got, other than that little humor, I have nothing for this month.
Counselor Martinez.
Just at the end of this week, I believe Friday, it's scheduled to have the first home baseball game for the high school and softball game down at the city park. So I encourage everyone, as long as the weather holds up, hopefully it does, come and support our teams. And it should be a fun time. I've been looking forward to it myself. And nothing now.
Counselor Skinner.
Do the softball and baseball at the same time?
Unfortunately, they are scheduled at the exact same time.
Okay.
So, yeah, I myself might find myself zipping back and forth. I don't know. Gosh, I hope they can coordinate that better in the future. I'll see what that's like. There'll be golf events, I believe, maybe one at Cedar Bend at some point. This is the first time in a while we've had a golf team, and it has a good showing. There's quite a few kids that came out. Most of the kids that came out are learning, and so it's neat. It's neat to see some kids try something new. And well, small thing, I guess, just golf related. It has to do with the Cosatan Campground. There is a sanctioned event tournament going to be put on there next month. So that'll be interesting to see how many out of town people come in to play that and enjoy
Flow
it.
around to our course in the park.
Perhaps so, yeah. Bring a little commerce to town. That might be interesting to see how that works out. It's the first time there'll be a sanctioned event within Central County. I believe there's been one before in Brookings. So we'll just see how much attention we can draw to that. I have nothing else to say though.
Stepping in from there. Counselor Skinner.
I was very excited to see the kids that entered the contest. I invite you all, I've been working on doing one youth outreach visit per month. So as your schedules permit, staff, fellow counselors, it's a good thing. It's been a good thing. So I'm working on setting up April's. So if you want to join me in April, you can talk with me about what date. I haven't put them out there yet. I am trying to I was brainstorming the word to use, Anthony, and I couldn't even decide on one. I am so excited about the momentum moving forward in the park. We have the bathrooms coming on track, and you guys know, the cities keep the water running, right? But like, I did not imagine how many times I'd be talking about toilets. So again, pulling back around to all the issues, like people were defecating where they should be defecating. There's a chance that there's a piece of those people who will now utilize facilities. I'm excited that we spoke with Kelly Timchak, Commissioner, don't leave us yet, City Administrator Pagano, and I spoke with Kelly Timchak from the Watershed Council, and though it's not a migratory fish stream, she's very much willing to help us with grants and engineering on the culverts and exciting things like that to work on flooding. I met a guy in Crystal River who's retired from parks in Eugene and Santa Rosa who specialized in irrigation and drainage. So he's willing to take a look and give us advice on where to start with drainage in that softball field and other areas. Alyssa McNair, I think. She's very excited about the playground element and other elements of the park. So there's a lot of really good community energy, and there's been energy that has been frustrated as well. But all that energy out there is coming together towards movement, and I'm very excited. And like the mayor said, the kids are very excited. So this community buy-in around the park and around this lot of possibilities over here, I think we're really setting ourselves up for building community here in Gold Beach. I have, reading my writing. Oh, I know, I'm going down my list. Through my own business, I met Deputy State Fire Marshal Sam Lashley, and he had great praise for the Gold Beach Volunteer Fire Department and Fire Chief Krieger. So we have a good reputation out there. Thank you, sir. Lashley? I don't know if you've met him before or not. So he was very excited about that. I've talked to the what's his title? Can't think of his title at Coos Curry about working together on energy conservation. If you remember when we were looking at the wind energy, which I've heard 8,000 more updates about wind energy. But when we were looking at that, the first, I thought that really brings us back to the 1980s energy conservation piece. So I'm really excited to work with him on that. Maybe looking at the start of the next school year, talking about energy conservation. I'm excited to see new membership on the Main Street Board. I just completely forgot Nicholas's last name, but very excited to see new membership on the Main Street Board. And on the health liaison role, if you have yet to take or promote the Curry Health Assessment for 2023, please do so. Please consider doing so. The numbers, we are still needing more survey responses to get the information to the Oregon Health Authority so they can have more information to give to the CCO's Coordinated Care Organization, so that's CCO, about what the health needs are and what the challenges and what the successes are. So there's the QR code here, there. That survey is really important to get done. And then not as excited about the parks because there's more work landing on my shoulders, but I'm hoping to coordinate, and you are all invited, on May 12th, the Friday night, and then Saturday the 13th, we're doing a mental health awareness event. I'm helping coordinate things. It's sponsored by ADAPT and the NAMI of Southern Oregon, which is headquartered in the Rogue Valley. And we're going to do a community mental health for everybody awareness event on the Friday night with a dinner at the fairgrounds and presenters. We have a facilitator that works with NAMI's National Alliance for Mental Illness. And out of the Multnomah and Oregon NAMI chapter organization, we have a facilitator coming down. She also trains with the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance as a facilitator. So she's going to come down and help facilitate programming Friday night for the whole community. I'm working with funders working on that, so we're hoping to have 50 to 75 seats Friday night. And then really exciting on Saturday, there'll be a workshop for people currently navigating mental illness, looking at recovery plans and what a recovery plan looks like. And there'll be 16 seats available at that event. So that's really exciting to me. We've heard a lot about mental health services that are and are not available. I'm really excited about having the nonprofit with the national resources and NAMI's flagship programs of peer-to-peer with a peer support and family-to-family, supporting families of people who have mental illnesses. It's great to see them showing interest and supporting the event. So the state organization's on board with support, and that's May 12th. And like I said, the community event is May 12th. It's an evening dinner, and I invite you all to attend, and you'll be seeing more information. Last thing, because it was in this file with the health thing, there is a clothing drive going on for the children in Gold Beach. This is through the Sir Optimus International Gold Beach, and I'll put this flyer up too. But look, gathering materials from the community for kids who are in need. That's it. Oh, that's not it. There's a volunteer fair coming up. Please stop by and praise people for volunteering, because people oftentimes need praise. And bring friends and people who maybe email you email you with concerns. Be like, there's an event coming up where you can totally get involved. And that's, I think, next Saturday. I can't read the flyer from here. I don't know why I was even pretending to. That really is it, Anthony.
What do I got? Anything interesting? One of our junior firefighters is a senior at the high school, and he informed us very recently that they were doing career fair on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Okay. So I don't know if the city was reached out to for sending folks again or not. Jordan, you're always welcome to sneak up on us if you're not already cordially invited.
We were, I was invited the same time the chief was.
Okay, good. Well, yeah.
I was not invited.
Was Ryan Baxter invited to recruit future public works employees? Let's just have him show up. He was.
No, but that would be a good idea.
If I may say that this year there are more than they've ever had. More vendors are planned to come up than they've ever had, and instead of having in the old high school gym, it's going to be in the new gym. There's more space. Very cool.
Yeah, I participated in it, whatever it was, like 4 years ago now. We had the city in there, we had representatives from every department, and then the cops got a call out. The fire department was doing something that's technically not, for the city scope, it's not a career path per se, which isn't to say that we don't have junior firefighters that are going to be very successful. They're going in with more knowledge than some of the juniors at a college level, and hoping to see them succeed very much. But we're going to be over there doing that, and so I will yell at him to see if there's still space. We can always share very easily for the city, I would think. So it would be good to. I wouldn't want you to be there all day, because it's a long day, but a little pop in or something for some of the kids that are getting a lot closer. I don't know when they have the high school or the seniors coming through versus the freshmen and stuff. So we'll get scheduled, fix on that. Because local government, outside of running for a council seat, staff is the one that puts it all on their back to go do a bunch of stuff. So, and other than that, I got it.
Thank you, sir. I moved last month. You proud of me?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Finally on the edge of the city again. Not in my final house, but close. And it was a busy month. And we did get the award last month, which I talked about last meeting. And I think our new trigger has found a use for the multifamily board house. I really enjoyed the kids and the student contest. It was quite interesting how many of them sent us their submissions but didn't include the permission slip. So they wanted us to hear what they said, but we can't share it with anybody because we don't have permission. So it was interesting, the different things that they're interested in. I did have a lot of meetings this month. When I was out of town was when the warming shelter came up. And so the Wild Rivers Community Foundation was very involved in that. And as was Councilor Madison. And everybody kept asking her what hat she was wearing, what role she was in. She goes, somebody that's concerned, and so she wasn't wearing the official hat. But as the mayor pro tem, I said, I'm out of town, I can't do anything, so let her do it. And so she helped get all the people in place to make that happen. As I mentioned earlier, cities don't normally do warming shelters, but we stay out of the way and make sure people can do it to give them the rules and regulations. Then there's always housing meetings at the county. No offense, but I have yet to have one that felt like it was worth our time. And I feel like we're repeating the same thing over and over again, that we're not going to be building in forestry grazing properties or in timber properties. We're going to be building where there's water, where there's sewer, where there's cable, where there's internet, where there's electric, because that's where we can get something done at any reasonable amount of time. And they seem to think that we just need to figure out how to develop in forestry grazing land. I don't get it. It's frustrating.
Did you go to that?
I've gone to several, and it's
Did
the
they
same subject.
bring up any of the short-term rentals in the urban growth boundary?
I didn't go to that one. I understand that they did something and now they're going to redo it. And I try to stay out of their politics because it's theirs to do. But I've been invited, as has Administrator Pagano, to some of their housing discussions, and I find them very unhelpful. But I think if we do something with housing, they may be a good partner because they still have ARPA funds, I think. Yeah, I'm hoping that eventually we can become better partners with the county. Just not sure how to get everybody on the same page. So, you guys know the answer, let me know. I encourage you to watch for your emails for League of Oregon City meetings, especially the legislative ones. They're usually on a Thursday at about 5, which is not always convenient, but those are issues that come up that are city related, and I'm finding that people that attend those are from the more urban cities. So
The Friday at lunch hour one or Thursday night one?
they're usually on a Thursday night, and they want input from cities on how they should lobby or if they should lobby. So they're looking for our points of view, and I'm not seeing a lot of rural points of view. And so I encourage you that if it's a subject that you know something about or are interested in, to join that, because they give you the synopsis of what's going on and in what part the city should go in. Because essentially the League of Oregon Cities, unless it's one of the priorities we've already given them, then they try to stick with home rule. Cities are sovereign, they should have a right to make their own rules and laws, and the state should stay out of it, and they try to stay away from unfunded mandates and lobby in those ways. And sometimes it's just one little minor amendment that can make all the difference in a legislative thing. So we are allowed to be political, our staff is not. So it's one of the things that we can do. And so I encourage you to watch your emails for those. If you can attend one of those, even if it's for information, it's helpful. All of the legislative, obvious, League of Oregon cities are usually on that call, so you can kind of get to know them too. They all have their own little specialty. And the broadband ones are extremely boring. Sorry. Anyway, telecommunications it's very complicated and confusing. Let somebody else handle that. But like last time, there was a question about whether or not we wanted to get involved in rate control. And I'm like, we don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, and everybody else was screaming they wanted to touch it. Like, no. So those are the kinds of things that come up that are questionable. Usually it has something more to do, like they're trying to create a cap on the size of buildings that a municipality can build because of the carbon neutral thing, and it's a little over my head. And there is a future building that Chief Krieger and I were talking about, and so I told him about it, that it might affect, they're gonna charge like extra for the electric or something. It's beyond my understanding, but that was one of the ones that's coming on. And then there is a bill that Ellen Porter from Roseburg hit us up at the legislative day for immunity if we do anything with homelessness. And so like recreational immunity, it would be immunity that if we did provide land or something for any kind of help for homeless, that we would have, as long as we didn't do something stupid and dangerous, we would have immunity. And she's got that as a rider on one of the bills. And the Blue Green Cities is going forward with that. So when that comes up again, I think you read it, because it's one of those bills that nothing makes sense that's not related to each other. So I think it's one of those catch-all bills where they clean up other language with it. And so if anybody wants to know where that one is, I'll let you know. I have to look it up. So with that, I'm running on, so I'm going to shut up. And I wanted to end with proclamations. If you know anybody that wants to,
Oh, yeah.
like,
I
pay
wrote a note.
attention to a month. I was doing that the first year and a half. I did it myself. And now I kind of think it's time for the community to tell me what's important and go from there. So,
We have a proclamation for May, so don't vote for May. And do not forget to do your OGDC stuff, your ethics stuff. I know you already reminded of that.
Do we get a sticker if we do it?
$5,000 if you don't complete it.
500?
5,000.
5,000?
So do it by the 14th.
Do we get a sticker?
can you remind the planning commission?
Yes.
Thanks.
No sticker?
So it's the council, the planning commission, and I think a few key employees, right? Cool. If there's nothing else, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Councilor Skinner with a second from Councilor Vieira, who I said his name right finally. I'll call the question.
Aye.
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 Aye.